I don't think I've ever been more pissed off than I am right now. I don't know if any of you are back, but if you are, we literally had a server go down on the show, which again draws my ire. Let me go back to see if Rumble is actually still streaming. That may be out. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're back. My apologies, folks. Please forgive me. Nothing ticks me off more than that. Which, of course, screws up everything in which I was planning. So I'll give everybody a chance to get back in. I'm hoping that you will return. I don't blame you if you moved on. Yeah, we're back. Yes, we are back. Thank you. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you for your patience. I hate when that happens. I don't have my sober chain on today. That's weird. And that's probably why, because I don't have my chain on my neck today, so it's probably jinxed myself. Anyway, if you come back, thank you. If you end up watching the show afterwards, that's fine. There's plenty of stuff I need to get into here. Okay, so back to what I was saying. The collective punishment argument that has been made about Israel going after Palestine. What needs to be understood is that is not what's happening. There are two things that's happening. Douglas Murray here explains that. Please pay attention, because this is not conjecture. Okay, this is a guy who covers the region, who goes to the region, who knows the region, more than these novice individuals. Shoot, more than me.
What concerns me about what Israel is doing is not their efforts to get rid of Hamas, but because of the particular nature of Hamas embedding themselves amongst civilian populations with the massive amounts of civilian casualties that will inevitably come, and that figure will grow and grow and grow. Are we not, as Barack Obama warned, are we not creating here just an opportunity for far greater radicalization of all those young Palestinians who watched their loved ones get killed? Why would we imagine that at the end of all this, they're going to want to do anything other than to become a new version of Hamas?
Now, this argument is always made by these very well-intentioned, uninformed peaceniks, as it were, which suggests Hamas, they exact this violence on Israel. Israel responds. And when Israel responds, its response will only beget more radical Islamists. That's the premise that guys like Piers Morgan and, as he said, Barack Obama and the left in general, that's the way they view this. So Douglas Murray has a great response to this nonsense. Piers Morgan goes on.
In wanting to exact revenge for what happened to their families.
Well, two things. One is, if you just follow the logic of what Barack Obama said, then you just shouldn't do anything. If you're Israel, you should be attacked and just sit back and say, great, we'll wait for the next one.
That's right. Keep waiting for the next one. Just keep attacking us. We do nothing. Oh, you killed 1,400 citizens? Yeah, we don't want to make more radicals. We'll just wait for you to show up again. And this time we'll probably work a little harder to make sure we fight you. Right? Because, you know, we have to make sure that you don't kill anybody. And then when you do come into our country, we have to make sure not to kill you, just imprison you, because we don't want to create more radicals.
But the second and more important thing is, your question supposes that there is a sort of peaceful Palestinian population in the Gaza who would love a two-state solution.
This is a very important point to all of this. And again, this goes back to my friends on the left, especially those who are African-American, who look at this from a very ridiculous point of view, that the Palestinians want a two-state solution. They want peace.
And then a few bad apples in Hamas. I think that's not true. Why is it that when one of the victims of the music festival, a poor young German Jewish girl, who it seems was raped and then brutally murdered and taken into the Gaza naked. Why was it that you can find, and anyone can find this online, a crowd of ordinary Gazans, it wasn't Hamas, it wasn't a Hamas rally, ordinary Gazans spitting on her body, hitting her body, mutilating her body further as it went down the street. Does that strike you, Piers, as a placid population of peacenik types who are just desperately waiting for a two-state solution to be put back on the table for the millionth time in the last 70-something years? It doesn't seem like that to me.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Now, many people would argue, well, wait a minute, those were a few hundred people in Palestine. That wasn't all of Palestine. And it's true, they were all random people, right? They were. There were hundreds of people who spat on the girl, mutilated the girl, continued to destroy, desecrate her body. Random hundreds of individuals in Palestine who were cheering this on, right? It's not everyone. But Piers Morgan had a debate for that. It was a fair one.
There are over 2 million people in Gaza, and there weren't 2 million people in that video clip. There were a few hundred. So I don't like to make...
Yeah, well, a few hundred at random. And did you see anyone in it saying, hey, guys, stop. We're not meant to mutilate the bodies of girls or rape them in public? No, I didn't see that.
But then what you're really articulating, correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't what you're articulating really an endorsement of collective punishment, where you assume they're all guilty?
No.
And if they don't stand up to Hamas, they're also guilty. And that's where people have a problem, I think, with the moral line here, which is if you hold all the Gazans equally responsible, then is that not collective punishment, which is illegal?
Well, first of all, there is some responsibility for the peoples in the Gaza. If you elect Hamas and they kill Fatah, and then they remain in power for all of the years afterwards.
16 long years. And you don't work any way to get them out at all. You voted them in. Yes, they did end up bullying you, but you voted them in democratically.
I'm afraid that there is some responsibility of the people in that situation. When the Germans had Adolf Hitler come to power and voted for him, we in Britain took the view that the German people were responsible.
Because they did vote for Hitler. And why did they vote for Hitler? Because what was the platform of Hitler? The same platform of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. Eradicate the Jews. They voted for that. They didn't come in lying about their platform. Hamas didn't come in and say, hey, when we come in, we're going to make this place into Six Flags. With that water parks, amusement parks, the kiddies, they're all going to get us an Isuzu Trooper. No. They knew what they were getting.
Some way. So I'm not for collective punishment per se, but nor am I for this idea that there is something unique going on in the Israeli-Gaza context.
There isn't at all anything unique happening. They want this. This is who they are. This is what they got. They're responsible. Let's go one step further.
But there is one unique thing, which is that the population of Gaza is pretty unique in that nearly half of the population are children. That is a unique situation.
Now, listen, nearly half the population is children. And don't forget, what they've constantly been telling us is that what the Israelis have been doing forever has been a genocide. So before we get there, I just want to put this up. For those people, especially those people who know exactly what I'm talking about, who like to use the word but not know the definition, here it is in front of you. This is the word genocide. Look at it, read it, look it up for yourself. Genocide means the eradication, the removal. You are no more. Genocide. They say that's been happening in 75 years. 75 years, there has been a genocide against those people in Palestine. Well, folks, here's the number. Here is the number. From 1950 to 2023, which is the current number, that number continues to go on the rise. You don't get a genocide where the population number swoops up. That's not how genocides work. Genocides work where that line trends down. That's not trending down, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to make sure we get that right. Okay? The growth in numbers, there it is in front of you. We're talking about a number of 130,000 per year of Palestinian people growing per year out of 5 mil. 5 million. That's 5 million across the globe. That means half of its population sits in Gaza. The other half around the globe, they get an increase of 130,000 every year. The number keeps growing. 2.5 million. It wasn't 2.5 million in Gaza a year ago. It wasn't 2.5 million 5 years ago. The number keeps growing. And Douglas Murphy makes that point come alive right here. And I love the way he does it.
No, I'll tell you what's unique about the population of Gaza. It's the only population in the world where people routinely claim Israelis are committing genocide, but which has a population boom all of the time. I mean, that strikes me as being quite an interesting thing about the Gaza. But as for the moral cruelty, I want to make a very, very important point, if I can say so, on this, which is, you know, people quite often abuse history, and they say things all the time. I mean, about the only thing anyone from history knows is about the Nazis. Here's something I can tell you with absolute certainty, Piers, having not just seen some of the results of what Hamas did on the ground here in Israel a few weeks ago, but having watched the videos of the unedited footage, which I was one of the journalists was sadly allowed to see the other day. I can tell you one thing: the comparison between Hamas and the Nazis is insufficient. And sorry, there's an incoming.
He had incoming at the time, but he did get to finish his point.
The thing that struck me, you know, Piers, about seeing the 7th of October footage was that even the Nazis were actually ashamed of what they did. You know, SS battalions who spent their days shooting Jews in the back of the head and pushing them into trenches had to get very, very drunk in the evening to forget what they had done. The Nazi high command famously had to sort of get around the problem of soldier morale because the soldiers knew this wasn't exactly what their lives were meant to look like either. I tell you one very big difference. If you look at the footage, the raw footage, and I really hope people don't on a wider scale have to view what I viewed the other day, if they see it, they will see something that is at least as barbaric as what the Nazis did. But here's the difference. They did it with glee. They were deeply proud. You see people trying to, you know, taking the head off a young Israeli man with a shovel and then calling their parents back in Gaza and telling them, Father, Father, I've killed 10 Jews with my own hands. Get mother on the phone. I want to tell her how great a job her son has done. You know, I come back to this thing. I'm not exaggerating this. It's very, very interesting, and people need to realize you had this situation with the Nazis, where they also were a genocidal anti-Semitic organization, but they tried to cover their crimes up. Hamas are actually proud of them, and they've said they will do them until the whole world is clear of Jews.
Yeah.
Anybody who tells you different doesn't understand the gravity of what's going on, which brings me to the most important point about all of this. And that, again, you might look at this, and many of my detractors will look at this and says, yeah, but that's Douglas Murray. He's a white man from England. What does he know? He doesn't know. So, okay, fine. He doesn't know. So I would like to introduce you to this guy. This is Mohammed Tawhidi. That is Mohammed Tawhidi, and he today is an imam. He is an imam, and many refer to him as the Imam of Peace. But he wasn't always an imam. This is a Muslim man. This is a guy who became an imam by literally going through the teachings of becoming an imam, right? He went to Iran to become an imam, and he was sent out to Australia, which is where he lives now. And he runs around the country and around the globe telling people about the peaceful Muslims across the globe, and there are plenty of them, Out of 1.6 billion, there are only 7% who are radical. Many Muslim countries across the globe do very well. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, plenty of these places are flourishing. And they keep their own Muslim rules in check. Saudi Arabia, for instance. They may be a little backwards about, women having rights and stuff, but these are usually peaceful nations. And Mohammed Tawhidi, I played for you a couple of weeks ago of him talking about the garbage of his faith and how France took the garbage in for cheap labor, and now they have a problem. It's on one of their own making. But I had just remembered that Tawhidi was in a film that many of you may have missed, and you should go watch it. It's a film called Trump Card by Dinesh D'Souza. And this is an excerpt, a couple of them, from Dinesh D'Souza's conversation with Imam Mohammed Tawhidi. Here's the first one, where he talks about his background being a radical Muslim.
You admit that in your earlier past you used to be a radical Muslim. Do you call it a fundamentalist Muslim? Where did you learn these radical ideas?
And growing up in a religious household, amongst religious friends, religious communities, it was always known for us that our path is right, everybody else is wrong, and we need to be against them, not just leave them alone. We have to fight them because that's what would make God happy. Any Islamist will tell you that America is the enemy of Islam. They're chanting death to America every single day. I did it for 7 years, every single day. Death to America, death to Israel.
Death to America, death to Israel. That's what he was told every day as a child growing up. That's what he learned. Death to America, death to Israel. Radical Islamic way. Palestine, no different. Now, further on in the conversation, Dinesh D'Souza asked the Imam, what is the goal of the jihad?
Now, you have said that it is commonplace for one to find this kind of radical literature in pretty much any mosque.
If you walk into any mosque, especially in America, you will find right beside the Quran the second most sacred book, Al-Bukhari. In that book, there's a clear chapter of jihad, how to kill and the laws of killing. Yeah. Members of Congress visit these mosques and take pictures inside them, and the books on the shelves, they're not a joke, they're manuals of war.
You described your experience of being in an airport. You walk into the
prayer room.
Muslim prayer room.
Yes.
And what did you see?
I went up to the bookshelf and I found a book written by one of the main leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I opened it, and lo and behold, there's a whole chapter of jihad and how to take people hostage, how to take non-Muslims hostages who are literally outside traveling. It's just a tragedy.
That's right. Trying to accommodate them. They have a book on how to take non-Muslims hostage inside the prayer room at an airport post 9/11. It would be funny if it weren't so crazy. But it's both. What happens to America if the jihad succeeds?
What is the fundamentalist and jihadi agenda for America?
The future of America has to be Muslim.
It must be. It must be. That's what they want. And who would you think these radical Muslims are using in the United States to infiltrate their devious plan? The easiest foils. Again, radical Islamist, former radical Islamist, Mohammed Tawhidi, now an imam, explains to Dinesh D'Souza how, in fact, he and many other radicals infiltrated America and the West in general.
So here's a paradox. In America, we have a political left. It's a progressive left. As you know, it's sexually permissive, not just homosexuality, bisexuality, transsexuality. And this political movement appears strangely allied with radical Islam. Can you explain?
They are. Queers for Palestine. You know they're all over the LGBTQ community rallying with the Palestinians. The people on the left radically supporting those college campuses. Well, let's let a former radical Islamist tell.